Hello, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you all. I'd like to discuss with you today something that I thought about, but just recently I thought about it in greater terms. And I don't know why I've never thought about this before, but now I really think about what it means. The scripture I'm referring to, or the chapter I'm referring to, is Exodus 34. But I was reading prior to that, and we do have that account of Moses when he shattered the first lot of tablets. Why do I say the first lot? Well, these were the tablets that were carved out by Jehovah's hand. Moses comes down from Mount Sinai after speaking with God for all that time. And what does he find? He finds them cavorting and worshipping the carved image. So he lost his temper. And rightly so. I mean, would you not lose your temper if you came down, if you was given a leadership role and it was your job to keep everybody on the straight and narrow, and when you came down after meditating and then after having divine instruction, you found your people basically just sticking two fingers up at the Most High. So he shatters those tablets. But in 34, and this, we're going to get into it now, and forgive me for using this particular edition. I've just said this before. I love the layout. They've done a fantastic layout with this. It is rather good. So we're going to just bob into Exodus 34. But now we're going to change cameras and we're going to go over to a clearer edition of it. Is that better for you? I hope so. Now this is quite interesting. And do we sense that someone's got a sense of humour here? Why do I say that? Well, think about what I've just said previously, that Moses found his people cavorting and worshipping that golden carved image. This would have greatly angered God, as you know it did. But do we see a sense of humour here? Well, perhaps we do. It says, then Jehovah said to Moses, carve out for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first ones. Okay, that's fine. And I will write on the tablets the words that appeared on the first tablets. So they're going to get the same instruction, aren't they, with the second tablets as they did with the first tablets. But there will be some additions, and I think the reason for that is it's quite obvious. There needed to be some additions. So I better read this in the context, otherwise it won't make sense. He says, I will write on the tablets the words that appeared on the first tablets, which you shattered. So this is God reminding Moses that you shattered those first tablets that I did for you. But he's not angry, is he? Because he will have understood why Moses lost his temper. And probably together they were as angry as each other, but for different reasons. And so he just reminds him, doesn't he, that he has to go through the whole charade again. And that means going back up to Mount Sinai, fasting, not having food or drink. I don't know how anybody can go as long as that. But apparently he went 40 days, didn't he, without eating and drinking. That's quite phenomenal. Now, it makes a very clear instruction as well. So he tells him that you'll be coming up on your own. You'll make no mistake about that. You won't have anybody coming up with you. You know, there won't be Aaron, there won't be nobody coming up with you. He didn't even want the sheep, the flocks and herds. He didn't even want them anywhere near to graze. And I'll tell you why. You've not thought about this, probably. But that would give humankind, that would give the Israelites an excuse to get near and to eavesdrop on. Yes, am I right? If the flocks were there, then they could use that as an excuse, and they could say, we was tending to the flocks and one of them ventured away from us and we went looking for it, but that could have just been an excuse to eavesdrop on Moses' conversation with God. And that is so clever that God has said, not even the flock should be grazing in front of the mountain. And I never, as Jehovah's Witness, and I've read this 20, 30 or more years ago, I have never realized until now why it was so important that only Moses went up there on his own. Obviously, we get a little reminder of God's power, because Moses was really asking for God to play more of an active role. If I'm your special one, this is, I'm going to shorten the terminology, but he's saying, Moses, to God, if I'm your special one, can I not have some kind of sign that you're walking with me? And this is why the covenant, well, God decides that he would make a covenant. And it was really to allay the fears, Moses' fears. Because if he was going to go into all the neighboring cities and overthrow them, he'd want to know that there was a powerful force working alongside him, wouldn't he? And that is why God decides to make this covenant with the nation of Israel, even if they are the most obstinate people you'll ever hear about. And they really were. Even Moses makes light of their obstinate nature, and together you can see that they've got this quite amazing relationship, Moses and God, at this point, because they're able to sort of be quite flippant about the people of Israel, and say, well, they're hardly perfect. They make mistake after mistake. You only have to give them a bit of rope and they'll hang themselves. They're not using that phrase. I'm using that because I think that's really what they're evaluating about the people. And it just shows that God has got not just a forgiving nature, he has got a great sense of humour as well. Especially, I had to laugh there though when he says, "Which you shattered." I never thought about it like that before, but I just started laughing about it. Yeah, let's have another go at this, Moses. You know, I pulled all the strings in the world to get you up on on that mountain the first time. We did a right good job, but you lost your temper and you shattered those tablets. I'm going to have to go through this process all again. Don't you think it just shows that they had a really, really special and close relationship? And this is why it was so important to understand this. Then you would know that when Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, the chieftains of their particular encampment, when they sort of rose up and were sort of talking down to the leadership role that Moses was playing, when they were talking down, you can see why this angered God, can't you? You can see why he would have thought, I'm not going to stand for this at all. And he set that brilliant example by the ground opening up and the whole encampment and anybody close to them. And he did give a warning firsthand as well. This is something that I realized, that he gave that warning. In the Bible, he said that anybody that is near them, you need to separate yourself. So he gave a warning to anybody that would have been in support of him. You see what I'm saying? So they spoke abusively about Moses. They were saying to others and gossiping, and they were whispering through the night. And even if humankind weren't there to observe all this apostate talk that they were coming out with, God was listening to it all. And that is why he decided much earlier than Moses had even cottoned on to, because Moses wanted to set this bit of a test, didn't he? to see whether they were worthy. Yeah, it's fantastic. But you never read the Bible, and sometimes a light comes on in your head. There's so much to this. Where are we? I need to flick through it, don't I? Right, so we got Jehovah telling Moses also that he would put him in a safe place. At the time in which he showed, on the first instance of when he showed up, he'd have to be in a place where he couldn't look upon his face. And this is where we get that expression, no man can look upon God and live. And true enough. But then he says, you will be able to see the back of me. But, once my merciful cloud, has passed before you, you'll be able to come out of that crevice that I put you in, and I will have my back to you, and you'll be able to see a representation of Jehovah's power, if not Jehovah himself. This is where I might need a bit more research, because I didn't actually think that Jehovah himself would have been there. I would more or less suggest that it was like a representation of his power. Not that the fact that he'd come from the heavens to actually be there. I don't know. It does suggest that he is there. It's just that it's a difficult one to understand. If he's more powerful than all of creation, all planets, sun, moon, stars, if he's more powerful than that, then how can he be so close to Moses? And Moses not just dry up and evaporate? Well, we know he gets this glow, and that's another thing. In chapter 34, the whole thing, if you take it, you'll see that when he comes down, they look upon him and they see this glow. It's like a ray. And everybody will probably be whispering and going, Moses has had conversation with the Almighty. They would have known, you see, the fact that he was away for 40 days, 40 nights, what he was up to. And so he comes back. Obviously, he'll be hungry, he'll be thirsty. And he does he separate his tent as well? He puts his tent away from theirs, and that they have, and not anybody can approach that tent. There are so many rules, aren't there? So many rules. And there's not as many rules today for a Christian, because they've all been superseded, haven't they, by you love your neighbour as yourself, and you love God with your whole soul, strength, mind, and spirit. And they've just replaced all those burdensome laws that the nation of Israel was bound by. But you can see why they had to have things spelt out to them, can't you? It's almost like they were children, and they did actually have to have all these laws written sort of in a legal way. When you think about it, they were written in a legal way. There was no way that they could challenge them. It's black and white. You follow this, you don't do that. You don't. If I'm making a covenant with you, then you don't go and conquer the Amorites or the Canaanites or whoever I send you into, and you don't make a covenant with them. I'm telling you not. So this is what he's saying. I'm showing mercy on you, and I am walking with you, and I'm going to make you a strong and mighty people. And if I tell you to go in and and slaughter the Canaanites, it's probably because I know that they're ungodly, and they're not likely to change their ways. And this is where I try and look at it in a modern way, that sometimes people do get to a point where they will never change. They will never, ever change. And they no longer become teachable. You can't teach them. And that's a shame, really, because I mean, Jehovah loves nothing better, doesn't he, than teachable people and people that are prepared to learn. Yeah. Yeah, 34. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. And there's so much more to Exodus than I'd realised. I've only just sort of skirted over the main points here. There's so much more to it. Yeah, 11, 12, 13. Then he makes this covenant with them. And so they will feel very special knowing that their God is the true God and the one who gives them the authority and give Moses the authority for nobody to challenge. Yeah, I think it's quite a decent book. So these are the ones, these commandments, the ones that went into the Ark of the Covenant, aren't they? Some are saying. After these were inscribed, and then they started their movement from city to city, and they carried the Ark of the Covenant, and these are the ones, these 10 commandments went into the Ark of the Covenant. Here's a point. Let's just say they didn't make the carved image, they weren't cavorting, and they weren't defaming Jehovah's name, and they weren't doing all the things that greatly angered God. Then there would have been no need, would there, for a second set of commandments? The first commandments would have been enough. It's just something to think about. Perhaps just maybe God doesn't choose to look into the future, because if he'd looked into the future, he would have known that he was going to have to go through that process again. But he probably chose not to. Right, I'm going to get off. I feel really tired. Really tired. Goodbye.